Sweet. Well, first of all, guys, thanks for popping on here. I know Sunday night can be difficult for a lot of people, just with life going on, family time and everything like that. So thank you for showing up and being a part of this whole deal with us here tonight. We'll go till about 6 o'clock West Coast time, Pacific time, and then get you on your way. Be respectful of everybody's time in here. But I just want to introduce these guys real quick because they're great friends of mine and great people. And I know that there's a lot of great information. Before we get going, I said it in the very beginning, but for those of you who just joined, if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat personally to me, or you can put them in the full chat to everybody. Totally up to you. Whatever questions that may pop up, and there is no stupid question, especially in this process. I know that it can be very confusing sometimes. For me in high school, it was very, very confusing. I had no idea where to start, and my parents didn't play college sports, so they didn't know where to start either. So it was big time for the family to be able to just have somebody to be able to give them a little bit of insight on, hey, what to expect at the next level, what's going to happen, all the ifs, ands, and buts that go into this. So if you have anything, please put it in the chat or text me, whatever one, if you have my number. If not, all good. We'll get into it. And then this will be recorded. So it'll be put on YouTube at Major League University. So if you want to go back and watch it, or if you have teammates, or if you have any parents that you're with, or any coaches that are looking to just hear a little more advice on how to get their athletes seen for the next level, feel free to go to Major League University on YouTube. You can subscribe on there, and you'll be able to see this probably by tomorrow. I'm not going to say I'm going to get up tonight, so we'll see. We'll see. I got baby nephew out there jumping around in the pool, and I'm fired up about it, so we'll see what happens. But without further ado, let's introduce these guys. Cameron McMullen, the recruiting coordinator, assistant coach over at Chapman University. It's a Division III program in Southern California. It's beautiful. I haven't been there yet, but I want to be there, so I'm excited to go there this fall. So Cameron was one of my coaches at the University of Nevada. Incredible guy. He's been around in multiple programs, been at the Division I level, the Division III, multiple times, from Puget Sound last year as well. And he's had a lot of experience in this recruiting process and getting athletes to the next level. Was a former player as well, so he definitely gets this process. And then Tony Cappuccilli, ironically, they're both great friends of each other, so that's why I'm more fired up for this. We might have a duo out here. Who's got the bigger sword, and we'll see what happens. But Tony Cappuccilli, he's in here. He's the man, and he's coaching over at the Los Angeles Dodgers, was a coordinator last year, was going to be a manager this year. And where was it at again? It wasn't Ogden, was it?
Yeah, Ogden.
It was Ogden. Okay. And we don't know what's going to happen there, but he's a manager in the Dodgers organization. Incredible guy. We played against him when he was at University of New Mexico, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, aka the Rebels down south. Maybe not the best of friends, and he also played at University of Nevada. So we've all kind of been interconnected from the University of Nevada at some point. Was a JUCO head coach as well, and a high school head coach. Assistant. Okay, same thing. You were rolling it out there. So you've been at every level. He's been at every level, from high school, JUCO, Division I, professional. So he's got a lot of insight for those different levels, just getting into this thing. So let's go ahead and get into it. And Cameron, I want to start off with you as far as the recruiting process for college specifically. And this one's a big thing because it's grades. And I talk with a lot of athletes, and they always say, well, my grades don't really matter. It doesn't matter if I throw 95 or if I hit 25 bombs in high school. But let's talk about the difference between a good student and what it means, like, to be a good student with your GPA and how to get to different levels.
Yeah, sounds good. And first of all, thanks for putting this together, Biles. This is really cool. All the hard work you've been doing with MLU, the Dugout Coalition, all that sort of stuff. It's been really cool to see, and something that I know will be really valuable, from a lot of different perspectives. So thank you for doing this, and thank you for the invitation. This will be a lot of fun. But just to dive into your question, the way we generally like to contextualize what being a good student means is everything relates to whatever school you're interested. So for example, Chapman University and Harvard University are both high academic schools. Now, high academic for us is about 3.8 is our average, give or take. 3.8 would have zero opportunity to get into Harvard. So understanding it first, high academic has some differentiations. So it's important to understand that as you go through this process, at whatever stage you are, just make sure that you know what good means at each school. So just speaking specifically to Chapman University, our averages are about 3.85, about 1320-ish on the SAT, and about 29 on the ACT. That's what Chapman University deems average. So understanding that we have coaches that reach out, we have players that reach out that say, Coach, I'm interested in a high academic school. I take school seriously. I have a 3.6, I have a 1200 and a 27. Most people would consider that a good student, as would I, not Chapman University. So it's just important to understand what each school demands as far as what good means. And that's going to be different from a California state school to a Division III school to an Ivy League school. So that's always at least the first place that we like to begin the process. Know what good means at each specific school that you're interested in.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. I love that. Antonio, maybe if you want to just kind of go into that as far as the Division I role, you were at New Mexico and then UNLV, where maybe I don't want to like demonize their academic standards, but it wasn't the same as Chapman, where it's like you got to have a 3.7, 3.8 to just be considered good enough for them. What is it like at the Division I level, and how does that work for you guys when you're there?
Yeah, we're definitely not Chapman academically, but I think it's a kind of a misconception that if your grades are just okay, that they're going to be able to get you into school, no matter what they're at, and it's incorrect. And a lot of times it can be a big separator for guys. If you're choosing between two guys that are probably fairly similar with their ability level, and one guy, maybe they both qualify to get into school, but it's coming down to money. It's coming down to who am I going to take? For a coach, like I'm going to look at two guys and look at their academics and understand that the kid that really puts in a lot of work is probably going to be less of a headache moving forward from a day to day. I don't need to really keep my eye on that guy as much as the guy that struggles academically, because we know that the better student's going to probably go in and get his work done without having to have somebody chasing him around, making sure he's in the right place at the right time and doing the work he's supposed to do.
That's huge. I love that aspect of, hey, just like comparing. And now that you mentioned that, let's get into that aspect of, hey, what are you guys looking for? You've recruited at multiple levels. Cam's recruited for a while at those levels. Now you're in the professional level and you've seen what it takes to get to that level. What are you looking for as, just put yourself back in college shoes, like for an athlete coming into your program? Like what are the specific things that you're looking for?
We need a guy that's going to fill a role. If you don't fill a role for us, it doesn't really do us any good. And it doesn't mean that you're not a good baseball player. It doesn't mean that there's not a place for you or a fit for you. It might just mean for our particular place at that time, you're not a fit. And that's only fair to the school. It's only fair to the student, to the player. It's only fair to them. You can't go out and recruit every single guy that we feel is a good baseball player, knowing that, hey, this guy's going to sit for 3 years and then he might have an opportunity as a senior to play because there's a freshman that's there in the class ahead of you. So that fit becomes a really, really big thing. If we don't have a need for you at whatever school I'm at, then why am I going to go recruit you? And if I am recruiting you, it's really doing you a disservice because you're going to be sitting there on the bench for a couple of years. Now, as a coach, I've got to deal with the fact that you're going to be unhappy because you're not getting the playing time that you'd like to have. So understanding like what is that fit, what do we need? We have to fill roles. We're supposed to win games. So for us in the college setting, it's going to be filling a role that we need. And if you don't fill that role for us particularly, doesn't mean you don't fill that role somewhere else.
That's a really good point. And Cam, I'll let you kind of ride off of that here in a sec, but I just want to give personal experience. When I was in high school, I was a third baseman at the time, but most people were recruiting me to play first base, and was a really good hitter. So my stats wise on the outside looked really, really good. And so I'm like, why is nobody recruiting me? I wanted to go to ASU, Cal State Fullerton. I only had D1 in my mind. And we'll get into this later on because this is a big thing because a lot of athletes are roughly the same way where it's D1 or bust. And nobody was calling my name. I only had a few junior colleges that were looking out, and I'm hitting .530 as a senior in high school with like all these awesome statistics, 20 intentional walks, all this cool stuff, right? But had no Division I offers. And I look back now and reflect, and it's because a lot of those teams that I was interested in didn't have a need for me. And I took it personal rather than, hey, that's just where their program is at, and that's what they specifically need for their team those next couple following years. So I think that's a big thing to just reiterate on, Tony. Cam, what about you? Like, what are some of the first things you're looking at? And it might be a little different for Chapman specifically, but just in general as a recruiting coordinator in college, like what are some of the things that you're looking for when you go watch an athlete play?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I agree with everything that Tony just mentioned. It's a great jumping off point as far as just understanding the context of recruiting itself. Physically, at least speaking personally, what I try and do is just picture whoever I might be evaluating. Generally, it's a junior or a senior in high school. What are they going to look like in 2 or 3 years physically? And it's something that, right, wrong, or indifferent is something that we have to do. We have to just try and figure out how the physical development is going to play against not only the players that we have in our program at the moment, but against the other players we're recruiting as well. So much of what goes into this role is projection, and it's hard. It's probably the hardest part about the role itself, but you have to do your best to try and figure, with the work ethic, with the mentality, with the attitude, with our player development, is this someone that's going to develop into what we believe they can be in 2 or 3 years? And if the answer is not a resounding yes, it's never going to be fully resounding, to be honest with you. But if we have our coaches that feel like it's something that's going to be in a good spot in 2 or 3 years, then that's a player that we'll feel comfortable moving forward with. If we don't, and it could be for a variety of reasons, it could be physical limitations, it could be roster limitations, anything like that, then that's generally the player that will do our best to, kind of make sure they find the right spot. And, it just might not be at Chapman.
Okay. So you're kind of looking a couple years in the future almost like, hey, what is this down the line? Like, where will we be at in 2022, 2023 type of deal?
Yeah, we're doing our best to, because you want someone that is going to come in and have the ability to hopefully play right away, but more often than not, it's going to take 2 or 3 years. And, truth be told, you don't want to recruit a whole lot of guys that are going to be pinch runners, pinch hitters, defensive replacements. You want guys that can step in time and end up playing. There's not a lot of Joe Jimenez's in the world that can catch 4 years, but that's the way it goes sometimes. And so what we try and do is project guys very similar to Joe that have the ability to learn on the fly a little bit, get the experience they need. But if we feel confident in the product that they can be as juniors and seniors, then we're going to be in a pretty good spot. What you want to try and avoid is the guy that just never quite gets it, the guy that never quite fills out, that never quite performs, is always close. Those are the guys that just end up, having coaches pull their hair out because you want them to succeed, you want them to get there, but ultimately maybe it's something you should have seen 2 or 3 years ago. So that's the hardest part. You're trying to project, you're trying to plan. It's an art, not a science, in my opinion, and it's something that just takes a lot of work and a lot of due diligence.
It's really, really good. I really like that, Cam. Thanks for sharing. And shout out to Joe. He's in here, and he's a part of the Major League University team now. Let's go. 2019 Chapman champion. I like how that rings. It sounds good. But now we had a question come in, and it was from Ron, and his son's a freshman right now, and he's getting ready to start this recruiting process. Now, they were asking, what's the right age to start this college recruiting process? Do we wait till we're a sophomore or junior? Do we try as an 8th grade freshman? Is it up in the air? And not only what's the right age, if there is one, how do you even start in this whole massive recruiting process? We can go with you first, Cam, and then we'll go into Tony.
My personal opinion is fall of your junior year. And I understand that probably is going to make some feel like that puts them behind the ball a little bit, but I promise you it doesn't. The reason that I recommend fall of your junior year is because, just speaking personally, at a school like Chapman that's very academic, we can't move forward with any players until we feel like we have a good understanding of what their academic profile is like. And all that means are the type of classes they're taking, what they think they're going to specialize in, what their practice test scores are like, things along those lines. So whenever we talk to a freshman or a sophomore, we can answer questions generally about the recruiting process, but there's still a lot of information we need to, fill in the blanks with, so to speak. So personally speaking, I think that summer between your sophomore and junior year is great to put a general list together. It can be baseball specific, academic specific, what you're interested in studying specific, however you want to approach it. But I think that's a really nice time to at least begin the process and, not feel like you're behind or anything like that.
Very good. I like that. What about you, Tony? What are you guys kind of doing as far as your different levels you've been at it in recruiting wise?
From well, I agree with Cam 100%. And I will say this, knowing that there's some Division I coaches in here that are probably going to disagree with me. My apologies. But in all honesty, the reality is, for a Division I school to commit a kid at 15 years old is insanity to me. And coaches and players that freak out because they're not committed by their sophomore year, is insane. You're 15, you're 16. You have no idea what you're going to be like in 4 or 5 years. Physically, you don't know what you're going to be like. There is a projectability part of this from a college recruiting perspective, but in reality, you're 15, you're a freshman. You see kids on Twitter all the time committing to schools, and they're honored and humbled, and we're putting the tweet out, and everybody likes it, and everybody's excited. We're all stoked for you. But you know how far away you are from actually reaching that campus? Do you know the things that can change and can go awry before you get there? Whether it's your decision, whether it's the coach's decision, things can change real quickly. So, I mean, I'm happy for you to commit to that school of your dreams when you're 15, but you're not the only dude that they've committed. They know that things are going to change before you get there. So being concerned with committing by your sophomore year, to me, is just completely unnecessary, and you're adding pressure on you that you really, really don't need. In addition to the fact that, yes, like, there's a lot of great schools out there, and there's a lot of great schools that most of us would go play at, go coach at. But some of us that are on the West Coast, we go out to the University of Nebraska, and we go out there and play a series, and it's awesome, and what a wonderful place to be at. But you know what Nebraska is like in January? It's not the best place in the world for a Huntington Beach guy to be when you're getting ready for your baseball season. So, like, understand that fit has to be there in every aspect of it. It's not just, okay, a Division I school contacted me, I'm super stoked to go there, I'm going to commit to them, and I'm going to shut off every possibility that comes my way for the next 3 years. And I think when that happens, we find ourselves after our senior year, if you haven't developed the way that school thought that you were going to, and it's time to sign your NLI, and they go, hey, listen, bud, things didn't progress the way we wanted to. We're actually going to go in a different direction. Well, now what? Now you told all these other schools no, because you're humbled and honored to go to this school, and you end up with nowhere to play. So
Tony,
that's my rant.
No, thanks for ranting, because this happened to a kid at my alma mater, high school. He was a senior this year, and now he's got I don't even know where he's going. I think he's going to junior college now, but he was a pitcher, right-handed pitcher, and he was projected as a freshman. He signed with, I'm not gonna disclose the name, but he signed with the university. It's really, really good, and he was pumped up about it, and everything was fired up, and he shut everybody else down. And then this year they dropped his scholarship because his velocity wasn't, quote unquote, on par with where it needed to be in his development. And that's from freshman to senior year. And the dude still had a great season for the week that you got to play, whatever he got to play. But now he's scrambling to find a junior college, because those fill up quick. And in Arizona, there's some really, really good junior colleges. So it's like, what do I do? And it's tough, but you see the social media aspect for the kids out here. Don't buy into the fluff. Like, don't ever buy into the fluff. And for the parents in here and the coaches, please reiterate this to your athletes. Don't buy into the fluff, because it may look cool on Twitter, but you still got to go perform, and you still got to get there and get on campus. And there's, like you said, there's a couple of Division I coaches in here that are really, really good coaches and can develop some really, really good athletes. And they probably would say the exact same thing. Like, man, you still got to get here, and we got to develop you to be able to play in this lineup, rather than just, hey, it looks great on paper and Twitter, and I got 100 retweets and life's good that way. So I think that's a big thing. Hey, don't buy into the fluff. Like, there's opportunity out there. And we had another question come in. When is it too late? I don't think it's ever really too late to start it. I think, like, go out and play. Like, if you haven't found something yet, then start to just, if you're an older guy, if you're junior or senior, then start to put it out there. But if you haven't found something yet, your opportunity is there somewhere. Like, somewhere there's an opportunity. You just got to start the process as far as reaching out to schools. And let's get into that aspect. Like, what do we do to start the process? Do we create an A, B, and C list? Do we email the coaches directly? Do we call them? Tony, we can start with you and move into Cam, but like, what's the starting point for somebody who's in high school who wants to start this process of the recruiting deal?
Again, I think this. I have no horse in this race, so I can be honest. There's
I love it.
Like when kids email coaches, or when I was at New Mexico, or I was at UNLV, and we would get emails from kids, right? They send us our videos. I'm not saying don't make videos, because there is a value to that. But when they send us their video or send us their stats, what do you want the coaches to do with that? Like, what is your expectation as a player of when you send a coach that video? What are you expecting back, or what are you hoping to get back from him? Are you thinking that he's going to call you and go, dude, your video is really sweet, here's a scholarship? Because that's just not going to happen at the Division I level. No matter how good your video is, no matter what band you've got playing in the background, like, nobody cares. If they don't see you play in person, they're not going to be able to recruit you. No Division I school is going to say, hey, I really like your video. Like, you should be a Tiger, or whatever that is. So expect that when you do that, you're probably going to get a camp invite sent back to you. And that's not them blowing you off, but that's them saying, listen, you've got an opportunity to come and put yourself in front of us. You can come to us. If you really want to come to our school, you can put yourself in front of your coach, in front of our coaching staff, and you can get an opportunity to play for a few days at our facility, meet our coaching staff, meet some of our players, see what our city looks like, and determine if that's still a good fit. When you're sending blind emails out, what do you expect that response to be from a coach? It's not going to be a scholarship offer right off the bat. You're still going to have to go prove yourself. You're still going to have to give them a reason to want to recruit you. And then once they recruit you, their job is going to be to replace you. So understand that you can put yourself in a position. You can go to camps and you can reach out to guys, but think ahead of what that response is that you want to get back from that coach.
Tony, it fires me up that you're 1,000% real with it, because we could be on a recruiting deal with, like, if we're a recruiting company, like, we have nothing to do with recruiting companies, by the way. So like, I can refer you, but like, I think these two guys are a little better than any other person you're going to listen to from my opinion, but you're just shooting it straight, man. There's no fluff around here, like just being real with them, which fires me up. Now, Cam, what about you? Now at the Division III level, it's a little different because usually athletes are looking at Division I, Division II, junior college, D3, NAIA, and it's like, what? I don't want to go to D3. I'm a D1 guy. Like, I'm only going D1, and that's where all my friends are going. That's where I'm going to go. What is the starting point for an athlete that is trying to get in contact with you guys, or just start the process of making their decisions of like, hey, here's my lists. Here's the schools that I can see myself going to. Where do you even start with that?
Yeah, it's a unique question, and it's certainly a question that at some point everyone's going to have to tackle. And I think at a general level, to keep it really basic before diving into the Division III piece, one thing that's always helpful is you could do a list of five dream schools, 5 safeties, and then 5 that you think would be somewhere in the middle, maybe a reach, maybe a settle, however you want to approach it. But those are really good jumping off points. That way you got 15 schools. That'll give you some time to research, figure out if they have what you're interested in, figure out if it's realistic baseball wise. I'm sure some of those dream schools, you'll know pretty quickly whether it's real or not. And then from there, you can always, go down to the other levels. What are the differences between the Division II and Division III? What's the difference between NCAA affiliated and NAIA? What's the difference between California junior colleges and out-of-state junior colleges? Those are all questions that you should want to get some answers to. And speaking personally at the Division III level, video is really important for us. And the reason it is because we don't have a huge recruiting budget. Luckily, our head coach does a great job recruiting and fundraising. So basically all the fundraising we get goes straight to recruiting, which is why we're able to be out and attend the events that we're able to attend. And, luckily with the success we've had as a program, it's put us in a good spot where we can be a little more selective in how we choose to do it. But recruiting is important because what we look for in the recruiting process related to video is, do they pass the eye test? Is this someone that we should get out and see? And so from that side of it, it's really helpful because it's going to give us some clarity, or it's going to let us be honest with them so they don't waste time either. So we actually use video quite a bit. It's pretty helpful in our circumstance, just from a financial perspective.
I like this because there's multiple perspectives. So if you are listening, if you're an athlete or a parent, I hope you're taking notes, because this is like crucial to know that, hey, maybe at a team with a lower budget, some NAIAs, D3s, D2s, some junior colleges, maybe that video is important, but maybe at some of the Division I's, it's not as important. Maybe they recruit a little later, or it's different with them. It's more need-based rather than athlete-based. I think that's huge to just kind of throw in there as far as what are we looking for. I had a good question.
Austin.
Oh, go ahead, Tony.
Hey, real quick. And also understand about, like, when you're dealing with certain schools, you're dealing with Chapman. Chapman's going to go out and beat a lot of Division I schools. So don't think, okay, well, I'm not going to go play at, if I'm not going to make it to a Division I school, I'm going to go to a Division I school. And here's Chapman, and they seem like a nice place. Like, no, Chapman's going to go play Division I schools, and they're going to beat up on them for a weekend. So, like, let's not think that, like, just because it's a Division III school, that it's just there's going to be a spot waiting for you, because that's a really, really good place to go. So just kind of do your homework. And also, my last point, when you're reaching out to coaches, spell their name right. Understand where they're at. Like, have the right coach. I'll tell you, I got an email once when I was at New Mexico where somebody was asking us about New Mexico State. And I was like, yeah, they're a really nice program. They're doing a really good job. Here's Coach Green's cell phone number. Reach out to him. That's just not us. But, like, understand who you're reaching out to and get your information correct.
That might be the biggest point, wisdom nugget of the night right there is, hey, just spell the name right and know who you're talking to.
Yeah.
Come on, man. But hey, you've probably seen it all now, and then there may be more things coming in. Who knows what happens in the future, but that's big time. We had a couple questions come in regarding showcases, and this one's from Keegan. And before I even continue, like, there's some really good athletes in here who have a true shot at playing at multiple different levels. But like Tony said, there's opportunity everywhere. In pro ball, some of the athletes that make it to the big leagues, majority aren't from these massive schools that you would think of: ASU, U of A, San Diego, Stanford. Like, you think of Clemson, all these massive big name schools, but there's opportunity at different schools too. So just remember that when you are going through this process. If you were to go to a showcase, would you rather have a player come to you and introduce themselves, or would you rather walk over to that player and introduce yourself? Cam, we'll go with you because you're going to some showcases, I'm sure, here in the future.
Yeah, the one thing that's a little unique with some of those things is just the recruiting rules are going to be different by level. So the Division I and Division II levels have some different contact rules as far as recruiting goes. At the Division III level, we don't have any recruiting rules, so I can essentially go talk to whoever I want. My preference is always for a player and family to come introduce themselves, just because I like knowing who's interested, and it just gives a little bit of an opportunity for some sort of a personal connection. And just speaking about showcases specifically, we really like showcases because, again, it gives us an ability to just determine the eye test. You know, one of the nice things about our level is we don't have a national letter of intent. We don't have anything binding until a family puts down their deposit to attend. So we can take our time. You know, we don't have to rush. We can see someone at a showcase and feel confident that, you know, over the next 6, 7, 8 months, we're going to have another opportunity to see them, but we want to have a good relationship built with that kid and that family. So if things don't work out at the Division I level, then, you know, we feel like we can have a good chance to do that. So, you know, a lot of what we do is we want to build that relationship early, generally about that fall of junior year. So, you know, depending on what happens at the other levels, there's you know, always going to be that one school, Chapman, that was, you know, potentially one of the first schools in there.
Very cool. Yeah, showcases, and mind you, you got to kind of know which ones you're going to in a way, but that's the toughest part to discern from. But there are coaches there, and wherever you go, it's not a waste of money necessarily to go to one if there's going to be schools there. Just understand that, hey, make sure that you do your research. Do your research. So I'm going to say, do your research on the right showcases and make sure they're being run by respectable people in the community, because there are some out there that you can be weary of that aren't the best fit and probably don't have the best coaches. And the coach is actually a high school coach who's wearing a USC shirt and a USC hat because X, Y, and Z paid him $500 to be there. So that is real, that is true, and that does happen. So just be aware of that, because I don't have any skin in the game either. So I'm going to shoot it straight because I want to give you the most value for your time. So just making sure we're like that. Tony, I don't know if you have anything to elaborate on that at all, or no.
Yeah, I mean, the other side is be aware of the recruiting calendar. You know, if you want to go to a Division I school and you're going to show up to a camp or a showcase that's outside of a window when a Division I school can recruit, and there are camp organizations and showcase organizations that are going to say, like, hey, LSU is going to be here this weekend. Well, I promise you, because of the time of the year, they're not going to be there. So don't judge it just because it says, like, understand what that calendar is and when schools can actually go out and recruit in the Division I level. If you know yourself, if the whole SEC is going to be there and you want to go play in front of Paul Maneri and you're not the type of player that's going to go play in the SEC, you might want to find something that's catered more realistically to where you think you're going to be going. And it's okay to be completely honest with yourself and understand what that level is going to be. But if it's for an SEC type of a showcase, if you're not going to play in the SEC, do you need to spend your parents' money to go to that showcase? Like, yes, it's really cool, and I want to go play at Alex Box also, but if you're not going to go play there, spend your money on something that's going to be worthwhile for you and for your future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just doing your homework, man. Doing your homework. Just be aware of that. I think that's huge. And now, Tony, we had a question come in about, like, the eye test again, like elaborating on the eye test. Now, I want to back this up with another question about the MLB and what are MLB organizations looking for as far as the eye test, and what exactly is the eye test if you're going out there to see an athlete?
Well, first of all, our scouts, personally for us, are incredible. They do a really good job of finding talent all over the place, and they're able to bring guys into our organization that they know are going to thrive for us, knowing how our player development department works. So we don't have anything to do with that as coaches. Our scouts are the ones that go out and find players, bring them into us. They know what our system is like. But in terms of like what our scouts are looking for, they want really, really good baseball players, like guys that they could see playing in the big leagues. We don't need nice boys. We don't need people who can fill rosters. Like, we need good baseball players. And that's the only way that we're going to move forward with becoming who we want to be. Like, our goal is to win a World Series championship. And that means that we're going to have to do development in the minor league system and move guys up as their time allows for them to do so. And it's taking the time to develop them along the way, get them up there, and when it's their turn, be ready to go produce in the major leagues for David Roberts. And that's really our number one goal, is developing players and moving them up. But we all want to play, everybody wants to play professional baseball, but that's just a different level. That's very special athletes that can do special things. And they're going to have to be able to deal with a lot of ups and downs in order to get themselves to ultimately where they want to go.
That's big time, man, being able to deal with that. And I think just to add on to your point, Tony, as far as like getting to that level, how hard it is, the most consistent athletes get there. Yes, they're all extremely talented when you're there, and you got to be the most talented in college for the most part. But the most consistent athletes are the ones that are going to make it to the big leagues once you get into that pool of athletes. And now with the whole with minor league teams being shut down, with the uncertainty of what's going to happen with the seasons, with the draft being cut to 5 rounds this year, are you kidding me? That's 35 or whatever minutes. That's a lot of rounds that are gone that we're usually going to take up a bunch of athletes. And I know a lot of college coaches have some tough decisions to make next year in the fall when they have 40 to 50 to 60 athletes coming in. And the seniors now are probably just like, a lot of them are probably thinking, what do I do? Like, how do I get there? Now, Cam, is there anything, especially once these athletes go out this summer, if they haven't been signed yet, or they're still like looking for something to improve the eye test, quote unquote, or what is your specific meaning of the eye test? Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, and just a quick detail about the Division III level. We get this. It's a little bit of a misconception that I wish our school did a little better job of when it comes just to the athletic piece. Is so at the Division III level, if a student doesn't get their application in by the deadline, there's nothing we can do. So after they hit that January deadline, so there may be a great player that comes up in April, May, and we may love him, but if he didn't apply, there's no way we can get them into school. So that's kind of a unique thing, our specific institution as it related anyway. So if that was a situation and someone was interested in Chapman, we would, I'm sure we'll get into it in a little bit. That's where we'd probably refer them to a community college for 2 years and want to follow them. But anyway, specifics related to the eye test, all that essentially means for us at Chapman is, how do they move? Are they athletic? Are their actions loose? When they're swinging, is it effortless? When they run, is it effortless? When a pitcher throws, is his arm loose? Those sorts of things. What we generally want to try and avoid are actions and movements that are stiff and rigid. So we like full range of motion. We like infielders that can get low. We like base runners that are able to change directions quickly, be a little dynamic. We like outfielders that can cover ground. And we're essentially just looking for overall athleticism. And the reason that we look for that athleticism is because our belief is it's easier to bring in athletes and make them strong rather than bring in someone in strong and try and make them an athlete. And so that's been a really important piece of our program. And, one of the things that we get told all the time when people come see our program, whether it be a recruit, a coach that's not too familiar with the Division III levels, they come and say, I've never seen so many guys that are so physical. And it's like, well, because that's what we recruit. We recruit guys like that, and we get them in the weight room, and guys like Joe hold guys accountable, and we have a great culture as far as that goes. But the physical side of things is really what we end up wanting to identify first. And then from there, we feel confident in our ability to, turn those guys into really good baseball players.
I like that, using the athlete aspect. Hey, we're looking for good athletes. So not necessarily like the best skill based all the time, like just saying more, going back to your point about potential and projection.
Well, and to be honest with you, if they're really skilled, they're not going to come to Chapman. There's going to be a Division I school that will, generally speaking, want to take a chance on them. So what we end up usually getting are, maybe guys that are at smaller schools, maybe guys that are a little undersized, maybe guys that just haven't quite developed yet. So generally speaking, if they're really skilled, we're probably not going to get them. I mean, it's pretty rare. We have a freshman right now who he's upper 80s, low 90s pretty consistently. That's unique. Generally, the guy we get in will be somewhere around 85 to 88 and kind of develop into that guy down the road. So, generally things like that do happen, but more often than not, we're looking for guys that we can over 3 or 4 years develop into the low 90s guy, develop into the, all region, all American type hitter, develop into the guys that have the opportunity to play professional baseball.
It's really good to know. It's really, really, really good to know, to be able to get to that level. And like, hey, maybe if I'm one of those guys who's in that middle of the road, maybe right now I'm 82 to 85 on the mound as a junior, and I might get to 85, 86 as a senior, knowing that, hey, it's not a bad thing to go to a program like yours or a program in those different levels that's going to still be able to develop me. You got to, like, on my end, it's like you got to know your staff, because a lot of times you'll go into these recruiting deals or you're going to a showcase, meet the staff. They seem great. It seems jolly. Life is good. And then you get on campus and you hate your life and you're pissed that you went there because they're nothing like you, like what you experienced on the recruiting trip when they were trying to sell you on their program. So just do your research on like the real, genuine, authentic people. And that's tough to do. I think it's really tough to do, but if you have resources, like you can use me as a resource, you can use these guys as a resource, any coaches that you might work with that have relationships with coaches in schools that you're interested in, say, hey, how are these coaches as people, like as people first? Because the worst thing you can do is go to an environment that you're not going to thrive in and that you don't like. I can go to a Division II, like for instance, when I was in high school, and the day after I signed with Nevada, Grand Canyon offered me a scholarship. And I couldn't go. And they were Division II at the time. Coach Stankiewicz just took over. It was his second day on staff. And he called me in for a visit, offered me a scholarship. And I would have gone there to a D2 and passed up the Division I offers if he would have called me a week before, because I trusted him and I wanted to be with him in their program. But not unfortunately, it was a great deal that happened. But because I signed and went on, I didn't have to go back. But just knowing like, hey, I would have gone to a Division II program because the staff was incredible and they were going to help me develop into the player I wanted to be. That is huge. So understand that when you're meeting these people and these coaches, that's a big key to this. Tony, I want to get into the fact we have an athlete in here who's ironically going to Grand Canyon next year, incredible athlete, and his family's on here listening in. And they had some questions about pro ball because he's in the talks of maybe getting drafted, slipping in the draft somewhere, getting signed. Like, what are some pros and cons for a high school athlete right now who has a Division I scholarship or just a college scholarship and an opportunity to potentially go to professional baseball? Like, if you had to make a pros and cons list, or just, hey, persuade them one way, or not even persuade them, just give them the blueprint on this, what is some advice that you would give to them in this situation?
I think there's a lot of different ways to look at it. For one, for a high school student that's going to go play in college, the atmosphere of college baseball is a lot of fun, and everybody loves college baseball. We, all three of us, you, me, and Cam, all played college baseball. It's a great environment. It's a great learning opportunity. It's a really great time of our life. It's one of the best times you can have, and there is a lot of growth that happens in terms of college baseball. The competition, the camaraderie, all those things are really great. I will say personally, I think that the development that they're going to get is better in professional baseball, purely based off the time that they're able to spend on it. There's time limitations in college baseball, especially at the Division I level. We don't have those, and we're committed to developing our players. When we get players, we know that they're not going to be in the big leagues out of high school in a year or two. So we have enough time to really, really settle in and work on that development aspect. We don't have to win in the minor leagues. We want to win. We strive to win. But our ultimate goal is to develop players that can go play in the big leagues. So the development piece of it for us is a huge thing, and we can take our time to do that. The flip side is, if you go play professional baseball and you forego your opportunity to go to college, the reality is you're going to get there's a financial aspect that's involved. Now, are you going to go play because you want to go play professional baseball and you think you're that 1 in a million guy that's going to make it out of the 48th round and make it to the big leagues? More power to you, best of luck. But you're not getting life-changing money or life-impacting money that's going to, really, really change the way that you operate or your family operates. That's really where that decision has to come in, knowing the rate of players that get into pro ball, how quickly they can be replaced. It is a really big decision. So I do think, obviously, the financial side comes into that decision quite a bit. College baseball is a really good option. Obviously, if you go early in the draft and you're getting life-changing money, and take the money, go play ball, and don't go to college, don't have to go to class. But if it's not, and you've got to make a decision and you're really back and forth, You're in a tough spot to forego college if that money does not make your life be in a better place.
Cam, do you have anything to add to that on any aspect, or good? Okay, cool. I'm going to add to it, Tony, because I'm really happy that you gave both sides of that. Because I messaged them back, and they're awesome people, great family, and I was out of my own ways of going through this because I had that decision to make. I was drafted my junior year of college in the 9th round, called in the 8th round. I said, no, don't draft me. I'm going back to school. They said, okay, we won't. And then the next round, best available, we're going to draft you either way. Sorry about it. So I had the decision to make, and it took me till the freaking last day of signing day to do it. So to say this is an easy decision is the hardest decision of your life. But write out a pros and cons list. The best advice I can give you. One, like you said, is this money life-changing? Is it going to change my life forever, my family's life? And life-changing money to me was not $300,000. It was more like $500,000 to $1 million. If that would have came across the table, that's enough for me to go and play professional baseball and know that my scholarship or that my school is still going to get paid for. Some of it will get paid for when I go back. So that was life-changing. Now, I think like understand where you're going too. I know where you're going. You're going to Grand Canyon. And for me personally, I love those guys. I'm biased. So you're going to a good situation, at least from what I know. And that's another factor to weigh in there is, hey, what are these factors? So once this draft comes, and if you do get drafted or get a call from the Yankees and they say, hey, we want to sign you for X, Y, and Z, write out a pros and cons list and do not make any immediate rash decisions. Think about it. Talk with your family. Talk about more people. Call us. We'll be able to give you some more advice. If you're with the Dodgers, if you get drafted by the Dodgers, maybe it's going to be a different phone call. But just know that, hey, professional baseball is a little ruthless. And you do have more time to develop, but there is a lot of time that if you don't develop, you can be just bang like that. So in and out, I don't know. That's what I got. That's what I want to add to that.
And understand the investment that's being made in you as a player. I mean, there is a reality about like if you're signed for $5,000 because you really don't have another option. Do you think that an organization is more likely to release a player that they signed for $5,000 or the guy they signed for $2 million? You're gonna have an opportunity. It's just what it is, and you don't have to like it, but that's the reality of the situation. It is a big deal, and understand like when you go there, there's really, really good baseball players in there that you're going to be competing against. And they're not all guys that you heard about in, PBR or your Baseball America reports. You're going to be competing against dudes from other countries that are really, really good at baseball that you've never heard of that are going to do some really special things.
That's huge. And yes, they will throw 90-mile-per-hour sinkers across the diamond from shortstop that are disgusting and really hard to catch if you play first base, just throwing it in there. Cam, this one's for you. Bo, he's one of my dudes in Reno. Great kid, younger in the process, earlier in the process, but has some questions about this whole deal. And he mentioned, hey, we heard about what grades look like for Chapman specifically, but now what about for a school like Nevada or I don't want to say average Division I, but I guess average Division I school, like with the academic requirement not being a 3.9, 3.8, something that's really high. What's the grades look like there that you should be shooting for if you want to get some scholarship money to go to school?
It's just going to depend on the situation wherever you end up being interested in going. State school is going to be a little bit less of a priority than a private school, for example. That's going to be pretty consistent across the board, but the way we generally like to phrase it to families is the higher the grades, the higher the test scores, the more money you're going to put yourself in position to get. And so what that means at a specific place is probably going to take a little bit of homework, but it's just so difficult to try and put specific numbers to certain things. We dealt with a variety of students during our time at Nevada, anywhere from the low academic to the really high academic and probably everything in between. So just as a general rule, keep the grades up, keep the test scores up, and you're just going to put yourself in much better position to be in a great spot financially, because it's going to give the coaching staff a little bit more freedom to include you in their plans when they're not having to invest in actual athletic scholarship when you're in a great position to get academic scholarships as well. So it's going to only put yourself in a better position just based on those grades.
Love it. Anything to add to that, Tony?
No. I wasn't much of a student, so I can't really contribute to this.
Hey, I'm right there with you. Word of advice, though, if you are looking at Nevada, a 3.5 or higher helps you qualify for the WUI. So if you get a 3.4 like me, you could have gotten more money going to school out of state. I know that's in state for you, Bo, but there is some athletes in here on the West Coast that maybe are considered for something like that. And just do your homework, right?
Hey, Biles, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys go to that list that you put together, go to each school's admissions specific page. Generally, they'll put together a PDF of what the incoming classes numbers are. So average GPA, average SAT scores, average ACT, things like that. Those admissions representatives at each school are awesome with the information they put out. You could find that all pretty accessible of what's average, what's top 75, what's the bottom 25%, things like that.
Cam, can you throw that in the chat just so they can see the name, just to have a reminder for that aspect?
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Perfect. Now Isaac Snyder, he just brought up an incredible question. Another amazing athlete in Reno. This dude's freaking worked his butt off to get to where he wants to go and is going to play at a high level. And he mentioned this. What approach would you guys suggest? And Tony, we can start with you since Cam's typing in the chat. But the shotgun approach, this is so cool. The shotgun, putting yourself out there, doing showcases, etc., or the rifle. Oh man, targeting smaller amount of schools and doing their camps and more focused on those like select schools that you're really, really interested in.
That's really good wording, by the way.
Dude, he's
No, I really
going to be a junior. Incredible.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I think if you've got like a school that you want to go to, then that's your rifle, as you say. Like focus on that school. There's nothing wrong with having a dream school. We all have a dream school. Have that aspiration to go to that school. And yes, you can focus on that place. But if that's your only focus, then you're going to really have a difficult time keeping yourself open to other options. And you don't know who you're competing with. So having some options opened up, you'd be really surprised. Like when I was growing up, I never knew anything about Reno, and I adore Reno. I absolutely love that place. But not a place I'd ever think about going to college. When I went on my recruiting trip there, they lost like 28-2, and it was snowing, and I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. I'm in. Let's do it. So you have an idea of what you see on TV or what you see on Twitter or just the stadiums, the programs you see. All that stuff is awesome, and there's nothing wrong with having that as a focus. But keep yourself open to everything else. And I'd have my dream school as well, but they didn't call me, so I had to go to a place that I found that I fell in love with from being there. So yeah, do both. Like put yourself out there, go to showcases, go to camps. But there's a school that you really want to go to, and you have a reason to want to go there. By all means, go put yourself in front of those coaches and let them get a look at you and go introduce yourself to them and see how that goes.
100%. And I just to get back to that point about the showcases, if you are at a showcase or even if you're anywhere where you see college coaches, introduce yourself. We're all good people. Like they want to help. Majority of the coaches really want to help you. And the biggest sign of leadership in an athlete that I would want on my program, at least, is an athlete that's not afraid to come up and introduce himself to me. Because that takes courage. And that is really hard to do, especially back in your shoes. Like for me, it's been dumbed down because I've seen the different levels. I have a lot of relationships with guys like you who are awesome people. But as a high school kid or even junior high kid, I was so nervous to see these coaches because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, the name, right? U of A, Arizona State, Fullerton. You're like, whoa, they're way out of my league. They're friendly people. They'll talk to you, but sometimes they're not allowed to talk to you in certain situations. So if they see you approach them and you approach them and say, hey, Tony, Austin Byler, great to meet you, man. I'm a junior shortstop out of Temecula, California. I'm really interested in Nevada, Reno. He's probably like, all right, I'm going to remember your name, 1. 2, I'm going to write something down about this and take a note and maybe come watch you play tonight or tomorrow. And 3, it shows so much courage and leadership from your standpoint that it puts you at a greater advantage from the rest of the athletes who show up. And some may have earrings in or this fake bling and all this other stuff. That's a terrible look for you showing up to a field. So present yourself like a champion. Like present yourself like a champion. I think that's huge. If you want to pass the quote unquote eye test, show up like a champion and act like a champion. Don't be dragging your blanket on your phone the whole time and the jersey half untucked when you're warming up. I remember a coach, they came out to the Cape Cod and there was a professional scout and he crossed like 4 people off the list because the jersey was untucked, the hat was like this, and they were taking stretch very, very nonchalant. Well, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're taking stretch lightly, how can I count on you in a 162-game season to come up and fill a shortstop role when Corey Seager gets injured? Just throwing that out there. So I think that's just a big point to put out there as far as we go. Well, before I forget, I've seen the NAIA question a couple of times. So, any thoughts on NAIA level from any of you guys? Cam, maybe we can go with you, Cam, if you have any thoughts on that.
Honestly, I don't have much experience with the NAI level, so I would not be qualified to answer that.
Okay. Um, Tony, do you have anything on the NAIA level?
Yeah, I mean, there's good baseball everywhere. Like, you're going to have an opportunity to play. Like, Lewis and Clark is kind of the same way. You're going to go to Idaho, a small town in Lewiston, and they're going to go beat up on a lot of really good Division I schools, and they do that. You know, I just think, you know, keeping yourself open to some opportunities, whatever that might be, whether it's NAIA or Division III, Division II, you know, whatever the best fit is for you. Maybe it's an academic issue. Maybe it's just that you haven't performed. Maybe you haven't developed yet. You have no idea what you're capable of doing. Some guys develop later than others. You may develop late out of high school, and you have to go to junior college for a couple of years, or maybe the offer that you have is to go to an NAIA school and you continue in that route. There's guys getting drafted out of everywhere, so it's not to say that you can't go to an NAIA school and be successful.
Okay, perfect. I love it. And yes, opportunity is everywhere. So they're watching, right? I think we had a question come in about like what MLB teams, what levels are they looking at? They're looking for the best players. They're not looking for levels specifically. They're looking for the best players. Who's going to come in and impact my program? If there's an NAIA guy who's going to impact my organization more than a Division I, then I'm looking at him. It's just really, honestly, who's the best player and the right fit for my organization. Let's talk about junior college. And Sean, we can kind of lead into Sean's question here about the JUCO level as well. But say, hey, Austin, what would you suggest to a guy that is a fringe D1 or D2 guy? Would attending that Division I and sitting for a few years be a good idea, or would it be better to attend a junior college to have more opportunity to develop and play right away? Tony, this one's up your alley. Let it rip. I'm excited to hear it.
Okay. So if you're a fringe D1 or D2 guy, and what does that mean? Does that mean you're going to go play at a D2 and sit at a D1? If that's the case, are you happy going to a Division I school and sitting for 2 years, if that means that you're not going to get your opportunity until your junior year? Are you going to be happy going to a Division II school if your ultimate goal is to go to a Division I? Cameron and I coached junior college together at Irvine Valley College, and we saw a lot of players that were able to go to a lot of different levels, go play and continue their career past junior college, which is ultimately our goal as junior college coaches. If your aspiration as a high school player is to go play Division I baseball, you're not going to go commit to a Division II school. You're not going to go commit to a Division III school. Go to junior college. Hold on to that idea that you're going to have an opportunity to go play Division I baseball. If you have an opportunity to go play at Chapman and they've got an outstanding program and you're going to get an outstanding degree and it's going to set you up for life after college, what more do you want? Like, what else are you looking for in that decision-making process? So the idea of being able to go to junior college and kind of bridge that gap, because like I said, not everybody's going to be developed as soon as they get out of high school. There's a lot of junior colleges out there. California community colleges are extremely competitive. Arizona is extremely competitive. Texas, Florida, there's a ton of really good junior colleges out there. Go get an opportunity to play where you're getting at bats, where you're getting games played, you're getting playing time underneath your belt, and go and play. And for some guys, you're not ready to leave home. You're not just because you're 18 doesn't mean you're ready to leave home and go be a big boy and be out on your own. You might have to go to junior college, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Junior college has really no restrictions on your time limits. You're able to develop as a player. You're able to really learn a lot about yourself. You're able to learn about yourself because there's a little bit more freedom than there is in high school. Maybe not quite as much as there is in a four-year school, but you start to see how you handle that freedom that you have access to now that you didn't before. And now you're able to use that. You're able to understand yourself a little bit better and put that all together with what kind of baseball player you are. How are you performing on the field? Because you're going to have opportunities. So if you take advantage of that opportunity, I think it sets you up for having more places and more options after you get done with junior college.
Yeah, that's really good information, Tony, just about, hey, what are some of the differences and I guess identifying what type of athlete and person are you and what fits your mold. I know when I went out to Florida, their motto and tagline down there was, for all the junior colleges in Florida, was the new Division I. like they were cocky about it. That we're good and we're really good and we're going to beat the Division I's around here. So just because you go to a junior college, don't let that cut your ego or anything like that. Like there's a lot of good opportunities, and you have more time to develop down there with more opportunity to play and play right away too is the big thing. So I think that's big. I had another question about that. Oh yeah, this one. I like this one. Tony, you kind of mentioned this one, but how do we identify the sexiness of a Division I program and how amazing it looks from the outside versus like some of the junior colleges or like the realities of going there as an athlete who may be a fringe athlete?
Yeah, Division I baseball, like there is a sexiness there, obviously, because we all want to go to Omaha, right? We all want to go play at LSU or Florida State or, wherever else it is that you want to go, Cal State Fullerton, and it looks really cool and everybody's excited. And the tweet is a great moment in your life as a young man to be able to let everybody know where you're going to school. Mom and dad get to wear the sweatshirt. You've committed there at 15 years old. And then what happens when you're 18 and things fall apart? Again, like this isn't to say that happens to everybody, but there are a lot of instances where that does happen. Schools have to give themselves a little bit of a safety blanket, a safety net, if you will. So they are going to commit some guys that might be competing with your same spot. You don't know what you're being told is not being told to somebody else. So the allure of going to a Division I school is great, but are you prepared to go to your dream school and sit there for 3 years? If you are, more power to you. But if you've looked at that roster and you see that there's a guy that's playing ahead of you, if they've got a guy let's say I'm a catcher, which I am, or was a long time ago, and there's a catcher that's playing who's a freshman and he's playing every single day, do you think that I'm going to go there and have an opportunity to play if this guy's starting as a freshman? So I think you have to look at what's going on, like what's their roster look like, what's their playing time look like, how is that being divided up? And if you feel like you're not going to go out there and you're going to get an opportunity to play, is that really a place you want to go and sit for 2 years? Yeah, if it is, more power to you. But for a lot of guys, they end up taking that path of least resistance where they recognize that they're not playing and then they bounce. They hit that transfer portal and then they're out of there. And then they're going back to a JUCO, they're going back to an NAIA or whatever they're doing. And they're making phone calls after the fact when they should have just done their homework in the first place.
Very good. I like that. Moral of the story, do your homework. Look it up, understand what you're getting yourself into, because that's huge. You got to know before you go. There was a question that came in regarding recruiting services. Now, I'm biased. I'm going to stay out of this one because I might upset some people that I know and care deeply about. But what do you guys say about recruiting services? Do you find them beneficial? Do you find them, maybe? Like what do you guys think as far as recruiting services? And then Cam, you're in it right now, so do you hear from recruiting services that are reaching out to you, and do you work with any of them specifically that could help somebody get to that next level?
We hear from them. It's not something that we actively pursue, but we do get sent information, and it's just kind of the way it is. But at the end of the day, everything's got to go through us and our coaching staff. So it's not something we put too much stock into, and that's no disrespect to any of them. That's their deal, not really our concern. But just speaking personally, for any of those out there that are interested, don't waste your money. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine with, especially the way that technology is now used to get names, information, that sort of stuff out there. If you're good enough, your name's going to get floating around. And it's kind of this little inside joke with a lot of college coaches, especially in recruiting, is like, you used to find a guy and not want to mention his name because you didn't want other coaches to know about him. Now within a week, everyone's going to know who the good players are. So it's not anything that's really secretive anymore, especially with Twitter and social media and all that sort of stuff. So don't bother. Don't waste your time, in my own opinion.
Okay. And then to follow up on that now, is there any specific recruiting tools that a college coach uses to find athletes? So this one on here is research and follow athletes, field level, sports recruits, anything else like that. I can't speak to, I haven't really heard of many of them. I haven't looked too much into that.
Yeah, a lot of those are great. Again, Prep Baseball Report, Perfect Game, those are probably two of the bigger ones that are being used just as far as events, tournaments, things like that. But luckily with where we're at as a program, we have enough relationships around the country where we get so many names passed our way from guys that we trust that we don't really have to take too many opportunities to, take a chance on a kid that we maybe not have the best relationship with that organization or coach or anything like that. So, speaking personally, we're in a great spot where we can be pretty picky with the kids that we recruit, and more importantly, the families recruit. When you're attached to a financial piece of attending Chapman like we are, we have to recruit mom and dad as much as we do the kids. So it ends up taking a lot of our time and effort to make sure that we have great relationships with people we trust. And luckily, we generally 99% of the time go through them.
Okay. Very good. And now that just brought up a question that sparked my mind before we get into a couple of these last ones in the chat is, how important is the family and how the family presents themselves at a game? Because we've all seen it, and you guys have been on the recruiting trail more than I have, but just seeing it at some of the Arizona Fall Classics and even back in the day when I was playing is there's some parents, man, and I'm just going to throw it out there, that maybe don't present themselves the best way at a showcase. They're a little rowdy. They're yelling at the umpire. They're yelling at coach. They're complaining in the stands. Well, you never know who's next to you in those stands, because I could be sitting there with this Lulu shirt on with no name on it and no hat, and I could be the head recruiting coordinator for Oregon State, and you had no idea, and you were just bashing Oregon State, and then you wonder why nobody's recruiting your child. So how important is the parents' role in the recruiting process? We'll go Cam and then Tony. So Tony, I'm sure you got something for this too.
It's hard to describe how important the parents are in the recruiting process. And what I mean by that is, there was a quote that I heard recently. I was talking to a friend of mine that coaches hockey back in Massachusetts, and he gave a quote that it just was the ultimate light bulb moment. He says, it's hard to change in 4 years what someone has done in 18. And his whole point was, generally the way that the particular kid was raised over 18 years is not something you're going to be able to change in the 4 years that we have them. And it was one of the coolest quotes I'd ever heard in my life. And it was a great context as far as, you always heard about the importance, but that really puts it in a unique perspective. It's more difficult for us because we don't have any athletic scholarships. So a lot of what we have to spend time doing is, essentially getting families to understand the financial commitment they're going to make to attend Chapman. And so the kids don't have that money. So obviously mom and dad play an important role. So we want to know what they're going to be like 2-3 years down the road. If the particular kid maybe doesn't develop the way we thought, are they going to be the ones that are, speaking poorly about the coaching staff to all the other parents? Or are they going to be the one that is still motivating the particular player to work really hard? Are they going to be the ones that, if things aren't going well, they're still reaching out to kids and families that, we're recruiting from their programs that they played high school and have good things to say. So, honestly, mom and dad can't get a kid recruited, but they can certainly get them unrecruited is probably, I think, the easiest way to phrase it.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Cam. What about you, Tony?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with Cam anymore. It's, parents see the result. Parents see the fact that the umpire called a strike 3. Well, coaches are not looking at that. We're not looking at, well, he struck out. Well, we're looking at other things. We're looking at the fact that, how's his swing look? How's his timing look? How's his approach? What's his plan like? Does he get in the box and have confidence? Is that a kid that I want playing for us with a chance to go to Omaha on the line or go to the national championship at whatever level you're at? And when parents, and I've seen parents in the stands wearing out umpires because of the call, and their conversation is that it's going to affect recruiting. It's absolutely not. The fact that a kid struck out is not going to affect the recruiting. We're not looking at what the final result is as coaches. There's a lot of other things to be looking at. If as a coach, I know that parent is going to sit there at the travel ball game and be wearing out the umpire, do you think that when their son or daughter is not playing, that they're not going to be calling up the coach? I'm not dealing with that as a college head coach. I'm not going to deal with a parent calling me. So again, how the parent acts is a huge indicator of what they allow their kid to do too. If the parent's acting like a psycho in the stands, do you think that they're not okay with their kid acting like a psycho on the field? We don't need that. There's plenty of other kids to recruit.
Yeah, thank you guys for just the clarification, because even if we've heard it before, we need to do it. And we do a baseball school the last 2 weeks, and we got 2 more weeks of it. From 1 to 3 athletes at 1, coaches at 2, and talking with some of the coaches in there, they're like, hey, can you guys do a parent school? I'm like, I don't know, but like going back in my shoes, I could see it. I had athletes on my team, their family members were so loud and obnoxious. I can hear them on deck. I can't imagine, we're at big showcase. We're in Florida at the frickin' Jupiter showcase with thousands of professional and college scouts there. And they're the reason they're getting unrecruited and checked off. That's just as easy as a kid slamming his bat and throwing his helmet and yelling an F-bomb. I'm going to check you off my list. I don't need you. I can get the other guy. Go ahead, Tony.
The other thing too is like, as a parent, let your kid play. He's got enough pressure on him. He puts, I promise you that your son or daughter is putting enough pressure on themselves as a player. They don't need the added pressure from a parent in the stands. They don't need you yelling out what their private instructor is telling them to do. They don't need to have you yelling out things that you've seen on Twitter. I promise you that the kid is putting enough pressure on themselves. They want to go to college. They want to get a scholarship. They have to deal with that pressure that they're putting on themselves as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, and then they have to hear your voice in the stands. They're really at a disadvantage. I know you think you're helping them, but I promise you, you're making it more difficult. You're putting more pressure on them. Be supportive. They're not trying to strike out. I promise you, they are not trying to strike out. If they're in the box thinking about what their private instructor taught them, they're probably going to strike out. So you telling them what to do and telling them not to strike out while they're in the box thinking about what their private instructor that you just paid a bunch of money to is telling them, they're going to strike out. So don't be surprised. Just clap, and then after the game, talk to them about how their day went.
That's the biggest piece of advice. I'm really happy you added that in there, just encouraging them. Hey, let's encourage them and let's have a real life conversation with them rather than why did you swing at that 0-2 curveball? What were you thinking 2-0? What was your deal on the field? Why'd you make that error? I mean, I've heard it all. I've seen it all. It's kind of crazy, to be honest, but hey, we can only make a change. We can encourage each other. Let's encourage our children as well, our teammates, our athletes. Last thing I want to get into, and then respect of your time, I've got some tri-tip out there from the smoker. The Pops is crushing it. I'm fired up. So I'm going to go eat too. So I know you guys want to eat as well, but Matty G, Carson City, Nevada, legend, great athlete, great person. He mentioned something here. Is it true that if you have the skill, colleges will come find you? And we can go pro too, like, because there was a question about pros. Hey, how do they find you? Will the college or pro scout come find you, or do you need to get yourself out there in front of coaches? I guess I'm thinking like as far as showcases, camps, tournaments, big tournaments. Cam, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, just speaking at our level specifically, because I just think it's probably the most relevant for this particular answer. The general rule is if you're good enough, all the coaches that we're recruiting against are going to know about you. Thus, we're going to end up knowing about you. It's like I mentioned, there's no secrets anymore, especially with social media, things like that. Division III level, just because of the financial budgets that go into recruiting, we all attend the same events. We all see the same faces at all these events, and we talk. And one of the really cool things, and why I particularly love the Division III level, having been lucky to spend time at the Division I level, is we're all competitive, but when we're out recruiting, we're happy to share information. Chapman University, a lot of really good baseball players want to go to. Our 21 class is probably going to be 3 guys just because of everything that's happened this year. But that means there's going to be a lot of really good players that want to go to Chapman and just can't. And so if it's a good fit for one of my close friends who's the head coach at George Fox up in Oregon, I'm going to pass their name along. If they're a good fit for another one of my buddies at Occidental, we're going to pass their name along. So eventually your name's going to get to the right place. Should you be open to those opportunities? Should you be closed-minded and just set at the Division I level, then good luck to you. Have at it. It's your life. So just understand if you're doing the right things, especially with the way technology is used these days, you're going to get to the right people.
That's huge. What about you, Tony? You have anything to add to that, even with the JUCO levels and maybe some of the different levels in there?
I think Division I coaches, especially understanding that if they were to go to a junior college to recruit, they're trying to fill an immediate need. Maybe they have, and again, an upper level schools at Division II, Division III, if they have a need at a position, they can go to a junior college knowing that the guy they're bringing in is going to be a 20 to 21-year-old junior versus a 17 or 18-year-old freshman. So you can go to a junior college, you can fill a need and start that at a higher level to begin with. From a pro side, our scouts, like I've already said, our scouts are unbelievable. We're not only scouting players from the high school level, junior college level, draft eligible guys that are at Division I's, 2s, 3s, NAIAs. Then we've got our full international scouting department who are dealing with guys from countless countries all over the world, and just trying to find the best players possible. So yeah, like there's a lot of resources out there for guys that are looking for really good baseball players. if you're going to fit a need for somebody, you're probably going to be seen. And again, that's where the junior college route comes back in, with how important that is. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Like, junior college is not a bad option. And guys really are very quick to dismiss that because they have that aspiration of going to a Division I school. But I mean, do you want to go to a Division I school and sit there, or do you want to go play at a Division II school and win a national championship? And I think that's really for everybody to really decide for themselves.
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, I think just having some self-awareness of what type of athlete am I? Do I fit the mold of a Division I guy? So if I'm a pitcher, am I 88 to 91 with some upside? Even if I'm left-handed, 85, 88, maybe have an opportunity. But for the majority of the time, it's high eights, low nines if you're getting seen by a junior or by a high-level Division I. And then as a hitter, am I mature enough? Am I big enough? Is my body already filled out enough? Am I athletic enough? Like, just asking yourself these simple questions and then doing your homework on the schools that you're interested in. I love Isaac's question about, hey, is it the rifle or the shotgun? Personally, I think you should have a shotgun approach with just having options, but then rifle it into the ones that you're most passionate about. So maybe circle your top 5 to 10 schools that you could see yourself playing at from junior college, D1, 2, 3, and AIA, and then doing your homework again. Like, if you have some resources that you can tap into to ask questions, hey, Tony, what is it like at New Mexico? What is it like at New Mexico Junior College? What is it like in Florida Southwestern? Like, just asking some questions. If they don't know, they probably know somebody else who knows and can help with that. So rather than going out and spending $2,500 to $5,000 on a recruiting service to get you seen, just do your homework and use your resources that you do have, if any, your head coach at your high school, your travel coach, your hitting instructor, pitching instructor. Now we've got 18 instructors per athlete. Like, who knows what else is coming in. So just using those instructors, using your resources, I think is huge. Cam, Tony, do you guys have anything else to add in here?
Like I mentioned initially, don't feel like you're behind in this process. Everyone's process is going to be a little different. And so just understand what your specific needs are and what you're looking for, and let those drive the timeline. Don't let others' timelines influence yours.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I had a good high school career. I didn't take my first recruiting trip till March of my senior year. So again, there's just sometimes needs arise that you're unaware of. And don't get caught up in the social media side of things. Cam's absolutely right. You cannot rush this process. There's a place for you. You're going to find it, and just let it happen.
Absolutely. And Jason, just to answer your question better rather than on a text message on there. You mentioned, so as a coach, do I encourage my guys to go to showcases, or do I contact the schools they're interested in and just send them to those camps? I don't want to waste money for showcases if there's a better way. I think what I put in there was more of, hey, if they're going to a showcase, or if you're going to a tournament, like say the Arizona Fall Classic or a PBR or whatever it may be, wherever you're located, like, just blast out the emails to all those coaches that you're going to be there. And these are the list of athletes they should be paying attention to. Tony, anything?
And I'll be real honest about this. When you look at a lot of these showcases, when you look at the Division II and the Division III and the junior college coaches that are there, most of those guys can look at you, they can talk to you, they can have a conversation with you, and they can like really draw you into that school as a player. As a Division I coach, for me, being a volunteer assistant at UNLV, I couldn't recruit. So me being there is for me to get eyes on that kid and turn my list of players' names into somebody else who hopefully will follow up with them. As a Division I volunteer, who the majority of these camps are centered around, because they want to get the names there, they want to get your schools, they want to get the notoriety of being able to say, I've got these Division I schools there, and that's going to draw the kids in. Guess what? I can't recruit. I can't talk to that player if I'm there as a volunteer. So as a parent or coach, be aware of exactly what coaches from what schools are going to be there, so that are they able to talk to my kid, or are they going to pass my name to somebody else in hopes that those guys reach out to me.
I'm fired up that you added that in there. I totally forgot to even throw that in. Yes. So would you recommend, like, hey, I'll just use Trotsky as an example. He hosts thousands of showcases in California. Like, hey, I'm hosting a showcase at College of San Mateo this summer, and I've got Stanford, San Jose State, X, Y, and Z. Do you recommend him reaching out to that guy, specifically whoever's putting on that showcase, and say, hey, which coaches are coming to this from those programs, and then you can do your homework from there?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I think you're going to get a lot of camps and a lot of showcases that you're going to have the recruiting coaches there, and then you're going to have other camps where there's not. There's going to be the volunteer assistant, And the reality is they can't talk to you as the volunteer, or they can't do much in terms of a recruiting perspective, but they're there. You see them on the piece of paper, and that draws kids in to go to that camp. So just be aware, you're going to have to really do something to stand out at that camp for that volunteer to take your name, pass it on to a recruiting coordinator, and then he's going to have to go up and follow up with you.
Yeah, that's really good, Tony. I appreciate you adding that in there, man. And thank you, Cam and Tony, for your guys' time. I know with what's going on right now, it's tough to be able to do some things. And I think this is a great way that we can provide some value to the athletes and families out there looking for that next edge, because to be honest, we had no idea what to do during this recruiting process in high school. I got lucky that somebody saw me at a really good tournament, and I got really lucky that I played really well in that game, and they referred me and got me in, and that's what happened. But it's not an easy process to deal with. So if you have questions before going and buying a service, like reach out. I put my email in there earlier, a phone number, like just reach out and ask. If I don't have the answer, I'll refer you to somebody who has a better answer for you, like whether it's a Cam or Tony or somebody else, and use your resources. And like Cam said as well, never feel like you're behind in the process. Whether you're a senior right now and you don't have an offer yet, it's okay. Like there's opportunities out there for you. Continue to pursue these opportunities, pursue these colleges, pursue these coaches, and let us know if you need help with any of this stuff as well, because we can help you with this. So please reach out. I thank you guys for just taking the time out of your Sunday evening to be a part of this thing. It's going to be on YouTube as well. So if you guys have anybody who would like to watch this or say, hey, this was good, I want to share this, or hey, this was good, you need to listen to this part specifically, go back on there and watch it and listen, because even if you need a refresher, boom, we're good to go. We can always go back in and check in on this if we have some questions. So I appreciate you guys as always. God bless, and have an incredible week. And remember that this is just a temporary time as well. Like let's keep pushing forward, keep encouraging each other, and keep helping each other get to that next level. Tony, Cam, great seeing you guys. Everybody else, much love. We'll see you guys soon. Appreciate everything.
Thanks, Austin.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.